Hi guys,
Hi.
welcome back. This is Andrew
And Natalie,
from Teens Money Mania. Today's video is about French banknotes.
we're here with three special guests.
Hi, my name is Luke and I like to play video games.
Bonjour, my name is Carmen and I like to play violin and do gymnastics.
Bonjour, I'm Carmen's sister, Carol. I like to dance and sing.
Starting with our oldest banknote from France from 1793 is this one for 50 sols, which was the currency name before the franc. Those were issued by the Assembly from 1789 to 1796 during the French Revolution. In that same year, both Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette was beheaded by the Guillotine at the Place de la Révolution. She supposedly said the famous phrase, "Let them eat cake," upon learning that the peasants had no bread to eat, which shows her disregard for the peasants or her poor understanding of their situation. There are two women figures, one at lower left holding a tablet, written on it, "Human Rights," and the right one representing law and order. The left and right text translates to, "The nation rewards anyone declaring the hidden truth, and the law punishes with death for anyone producing fake banknotes," as there were many illegal copies made which forced this note taken out of circulation earlier than planned.
During the First World War in 1920s, the government in the various parts of France struck many emergency notes with small values to address the shortage of coins as metals were in high demand for the weapon of war. For example, this note for 5 francs from Cambrai in 1917, where it was under the German occupation. It had decorative border design and a special wavy line security cut at the left side. The reverse has a portrait of Marianne, the national icon of France, and a personification of liberty and reason. There is also a blue hand stamp on the right, carries over the curvy line border, so the note could be made up with a stub, retained by the bank like ones on modern checkbooks. Finally, there's a hand stamp in red at the left side, mentioning Charleroi, which is interesting as this is in Belgium and about an hour away from Lille in France. It shows that these emergency notes were sometimes acceptable for cross-border trade, probably after the end of the World War.
This other emergency note for 2 francs from Paris in 1920, which shows on the front Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom, trade, arts, and war strategy. This design is after the famous statue of Minerva, housed at the Louvre in Paris. The reverse shows the actual silver 2 franc coin from 1919 that was replaced by this temporary banknote, along with a note saying this note is valid till 1st July 1922.
This huge banknote for 1,000 francs from 1931 shows on the front 2 heads at the top corners and 2 rock medallions, showing Ceres and Mercury, the Roman gods. Ceres was the goddess of agriculture, grain, crops, and fertility, while Mercury was the god of financial gain, commerce, luck, and trickery. There are also 2 angels symbolizing agriculture, bicycle, and the rooster, and comets shown by the sea anchor, and shovel standing on either sides. The back shows a portrait symbolizing fortune, with the left having Andre Ampère at his work table, and on the right Louis Pasteur, both representing research and science. In the center is a blacksmith and goldsmith representing crafts. There are also 2 watermarks showing the profiles of Ceres and Mercury facing each other. Finally, as most French banknotes at that time, there are a lot of pinholes from people pinning together the bunch of banknotes.
This banknote for 50 francs from 1940 has the same god Ceres and the Mercury. The front shows Ceres and the Park of Versailles with a reclining figure at right. On the back, Mercury on right holding the staff of Hermes.
This banknote for 50 francs from 1941 shows on the front a portrait of Jacques Coeur writing with a quill pen along with a decorative casket and inkwell. He lived in the 15th century and was a famous merchant who established the France-Levant trade route. The windows behind him overlooks the facade of the palace of Jacques Coeur in Bourges. In the bottom of the banknote, his motto reads, "With brave heart, nothing is impossible." The backside shows a Renaissance portrait of peasant woman in the traditional costume of buri, spinning by hand. Behind her is an agricultural scene in Bourges, with flock of sheep in a field. There is also a watermark in the form of heart showing a woman's head profile.
Banknote of 10 francs from 1942 has a portrait of a miner and a helmet with an axe on his shoulder, with background landscape and flanked by two miner statues. The backside shows a portrait of a peasant mother wearing a white headscarf, carrying her baby with one arm and a hoe with the other. The background shows a bell and a rural landscape with two oxen. There is also a watermark. Here is for John of Arc and helmet.
This banknote of 20 francs, also from 1942, has a Breton fisherman at right. On the back are two women at left center and Breton cavalry sculpture on the right.
Note of 5 francs from 1943 has a portrait of a young Pyrenean shepherd and a bird and stick, with mountains, landscape and village in the background. The river shows a portrait of a young girl wearing a white cap and a light green scarf around the shoulders and chest. She has a gold necklace, cross and a traditional woman costume of the Aegean region, surrounded by colorful flowers. This banknote has a watermark of a Baron Palissy who was born in the Aegean.
These two banknotes of 2 and 10 francs are called complementary francs, which landed in France with Allied troops on June 6, 1944. Although they were welcomed on a political level, it was later rejected by many as it was not part of the French identity. The 2 francs had a green font, while the 10 francs is lilac, both with black borders and 2 torches at the left and right in green underprint. The text on the top mentions it is issued in France. On the back is the flag of France with blue on red underprint below, which the 3 French values are mentioned: liberty, equality, and fraternity.
The front of this huge banknote from 1945 for 5,000 francs shows a portrait symbolizing the French colonies. This is represented by a young white blonde woman symbolizing France against a backdrop of French tricolor flags, along a Sudanese woman and 2 men, an Annamese and a Berber, all of which are surrounded by colorful flowers and fruits. It is thought the idea for this design was taken from the propaganda poster of the Vichy government. 3 colors, 1 flag, and 1 empire by Eric Castell. The back shows the same French blonde woman with backdrop decoration of fruits and flowers. On the bottom there are maritime cities, landscape with Algeria at left and Indochina on the right. There are also a watermark with profiles of the French, African, and Asian women.
This banknote of 10 francs from 1947 is from the French-occupied Germany territories after World War II. In 1945, at the end of the Second World War, Germany and Austria were divided into 4 occupation zones, controlled by the Allies. The front of the banknote shows a woman portrait with fruits and flowers. On the reverse shows 2 women wheat harvesting.
Note from 1952 for 100 francs shows on the front a farmer with 2 oxen. On the back is a picture of a man, woman, and children at dockside. There is also a watermark of a woman with hair parted on her left.
This banknote from 1972 for 10 francs shows on the front a portrait of François Arouet, better known by the pen name Voltaire. In the background is Palais des Tuileries in Paris, as Voltaire could see from his apartment where he died. Born in 1694, he was a French writer, historian, and philosopher famous for his advocacy of civil freedoms, free trade, and separation of church from state. He wrote more than 20,000 letters and more than 2,000 books and pamphlets. Besides French, he spoke fluent Latin, Greek Italian, Spanish, and English. On the back is a portrait of Voltaire wearing a wig and writing with a quill pen. The background is Castelciré in Lorraine, where Voltaire lived from 1733 to 1740. There is also Voltaire head watermark.
This banknote for 100 francs from 1976 shows on the front an oil portrait of Pierre Corneille with the background of colonnades in the Opera of the Place of Versailles. At the bottom left and right are the flowers and trophies of arms. The back shows the same portrait of Pierre Corneille in a medallion, and the background is Rouen city, including a Seine river and Rouen cathedral. At the bottom right corner is Corneille's childhood home and the courthouse in Rouen at bottom left.
This banknote from 1987 for 200 francs is for the famous writer Charles Louis de Secondat, along the marble bust of Montesquieu. On the left side is a female figure holding a shield symbolizing the law, and a badge symbolizing his philosophy masterwork, the Spirit of Laws. We also note there are 2 raised black dots in the lower left corner to help the blind recognize the banknote. On the back is his portrait again and statue of Sulla. The bottom right is the Brede Castle in Gironde, where Montesquieu was born. The background is drawn in Persian style to match his work of Persian letters and dialogue between Scylla and Euphrates. There is also a watermark for the portrait of Montesquieu.
This banknote for 20 francs from 1997 is for portrait French composer Claude Debussy, painted by Marcel Bachet in Versailles Museum, Paris. The background is a stormy sea with big waves, which is an illustration for an orchestral composition, The Sea, by him. On the back is the same portrait of Claude Debussy, with the background scenery for another major work by him, A Fountain in a Park, designed in April 1902 for Pelléas and Messiaen de Opera. There is also a watermark in the shape of portrait Claude Debussy.
And finally, this banknote from 1999 for 50 francs shows portrait of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, French writer, poet, and pilot, author of The Little Prince, a beloved children's book seen here on the banknote. Above the watermark, which is an image of Antoine himself, is a drawing of an elephant inside a big snake. This simple drawing is taken from Le Petit Prince. In the background, a map of Europe and Africa and flying plane called De Lecteur 28. This was a successful French long-haul mail and passenger airline of the 1930s. Printed in white ink just below the watermark is a copy of the sheep that was rejected by the Little Prince. Under UV light, the sheep will light up. On the back is the Breguet 14 biplane flying over the desert with wild weather in the sky while his aircraft runs over the Sahara Desert. The inclusion of the drawing of the elephant being digested by the big snake and the hidden picture of a sheep trait. One of the nicest twists to the design of a banknote. One can be certain that Le Petit Prince was bedtime reading for the designer both as a child and as an adult. Francs were used in France until 31 December 2001, and since then the euro currency was used thereafter.
Now you've seen all our collection from French banknotes.
I hope you liked it and learned something new.
Make sure to subscribe,
Like and share.
And turn on your notifications to receive every single video we post. And comment down below.
See you
We'll
next
see you next
time.
time.
Bye.
Bye.